Welcome to my vertical obsession. Today we are talking about I flash married my best friend on ReelShort. And I've been slightly waiting to watch this since it came out. I just had to wait a little bit before I could get the subscription to the app, so it took me a little bit longer, but I would have done this a lot sooner. And for this one, the one thing that I really loved about this one is that it was just like this cute little love story of friends becoming more and then finally, falling for each other. And I always do love those stories. I've always been kind of a fan of those stories. And I know sometimes I like enemies to lovers a bit more because the tension is always so much more fun to watch. Plus you always sit there like seeing these two fight and then you just want to go, okay, now just kiss. You just want to kiss. So like that energy of two people hating each other, all this pent up emotion, and it's always fun to watch. And I know that that's the case with one of the ones that just dropped on Candy Jar. That gave me that little fix, so we'll have to talk about that one a little bit. But here we are talking about Flash Married My Best Friend. And we have characters Chloe, Pascal, and Mateo Lane, who goes by Maddie to Chloe, which threw me off a couple of times because she would always call him Maddie and then call him Mateo, and my brain was just not always connecting the two because I'm so used to Matt or Maddie being the nickname for Matthew. And probably heard it for Mateo too, but I've heard it more for Matthew. So I always kept going, wait, no, his name's not Matthew, it's Mateo. It was just one of those things that just kind of threw me off a little bit. And I know that really has nothing to do with the series. I just... sometimes these names throw me for a loop every so often. So one of the things that I've love about ReelShort now is that they put the actors and the character names at the end of their series. And I'm very grateful because there are times where I'll see a series and I'll be like, who is that? It's like, I know I've seen them and I know they've been in other things that I really like, but I don't know their names. It's nice that they've started doing that. So I'm really appreciative to that. And I know it's mostly only ReelShort that I see it on. I think kind of seen it on Drama Box or Good Short. I think they've done a couple too, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know it's definitely ReelShort that does it on theirs. Sorry, I went on this whole tangent about names and then kind of lost my train of thought. Okay, we're going back. So going back to the actual show and the actual series. And like I said, this was one of those friends to lovers situation, especially with the character of Mateo / Maddie being in love with Chloe since they first ran into each other in college and him wanting to be more than friends with her, but she never seeing him as more than a friend. And like I said, I love these storylines because you can tell that it's one of those things where they will get together and they will figure out what they want, but it's going to take some time to get there. Which is why I think they don't always do these kind of storylines for movies, because I don't think these type of slow burns work as well. Or it might just not be the movies that I'm watching. I'm not saying that it doesn't work as well. I just, sometimes certain movies, producers and directors and streaming services, and they like the stories that really draw people in and give more drama, and sometimes these slow burn best friends don't always do that. And sometimes it's just a nice little romantic story that you just need. So I was happy that this was the type of story that it was. Because I think when I watched the trailer, because the trailers always tend to be a lot different than the actual series. And that also tends to be the case for movies and TV shows too, which is a constant annoyance sometimes, but that's another thing. That can be a talk I have on my TV podcast, because, and I know that it's been mentioned, I think, from like editors, TV people before, that the difference in the discrepancy is always not fun, because people get mad at that, you know? When it comes to movies, you know, you see a trailer, and you see all these great shots, but then sometimes there are things in the trailer that aren't in the movie. Or for a TV show, they want something more dramatic, and to pull people in, sometimes they'll add things or they'll change things. And I've seen that quite a bit with, I want to say Chicago Fire the most. I noticed that with Chicago Fire the most, is that they'll kind of put things in there. Chicago PD has been known to do it too. Well, they'll add little things, and then when you watch the show, it's like, there was something in the trailer that never happened in the actual episode. It's basically to draw you in, make you want to watch. And I know with certain shows and movies, it's sometimes someone completely different doing the trailer than editing the movie and the show, I think. And I think that's where the disconnect tends to happen. I don't know if that's changed, but I know that was one of the disconnect things. But again, I'm getting off topic. So going back. I'm sorry. Going back, like I said, the trailer was a little bit different than what the actual series was. And again, this kind of happens because it's also one of those things that when I watch the trailer, how I envision things going are not always how it plays out. And I think that's more my mind doing that. Because I think when I watched the trailer, which I may have to watch it again just to refresh my memory, because I know I watched the trailer back before the series actually dropped. Or maybe it was when the series just dropped, before I could actually watch the whole series. The way I envisioned it, or how I thought the trailer was saying, is that Chloe and Mateo, best friends forever, ended up getting drunk and then getting married accidentally, and now they have to kind of figure out marriage together. That's how I kind of saw this, which is not how it went at all. It was, she found out her boyfriend... No, that's how it usually starts out. This time, she did not find out her boyfriend was cheating, even though Mateo saw the boyfriend being a jerk and hitting on another woman. But it was the boyfriend who broke up with her. Because normally, again, how it starts in series like these is the girlfriend sees the boyfriend cheating and then breaks up, is very sad, and then someone comes along to help them cheer up, in a sense. So either they end up, one night stand with this stranger, or this stranger ends up being like, hey, let's get married, you can help me, type of deal, and we can help each other. So that's kind of how some of these starts, but that's not how this one started. This one started, like I said, with Chloe's boyfriend, his name is Tom, breaking up with her, and then Mateo coming to the rescue to help ease her broken heart. But first, by trying to get Chloe and Tom to make up, be friends, and of course Chloe's like, what are you doing? And even I sat there going like, he just watched him slap someone else's ass and then break up with her, and you're over here being like, yeah, make up, hug, be happy. And then after, when they're hugging, he rips into Tom, pretending like Chloe's his wife, yelling at him in front of everyone, and it was like, oh, okay, I see what he's doing now. Oh, okay, nice one. That 180 was so great. I loved it so much. I also was a bit confused at how this whole thing happened in front of people, but they also didn't see the, oh, let's make up, be happy, and the hug before the whole, you're touching my wife portion of that. But I still loved it. It was so great and such an amazing moment for him to do. It was a swoon-worthy moment for sure for Mateo to do that for Chloe, and to stick it to Tom and be like, go away, you're an asshole. So definitely made me fall in love with Tom definitely made me fall in love with Mateo right there. And the other thing that kind of made me question, which I know I really shouldn't because this is how these series work, but it was definitely one thing that I was very confused how that worked. Whereas in other series, like other series about billionaires, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. But Mateo had been hiding the fact that he was this CEO, this billionaire, was running this company from Chloe. You know, he was hiding it from Chloe, but they had been living together, I think, 10 years? And it just kind of always, not kind of always, but it was one of the things that I was like, how was he able to hide this from her for this long? How did she not realize he was maybe not a billionaire, but not completely broke or not a CEO? And I know, like I said, you have to suspend your reality and kind of just enjoy it. But that was just like one thing that I sat there going like, how did she not know who he was this whole time? It's like they've been friends for so long. They've been living together for so long. He was really able to hide. And speaking of hiding, that's the other thing too with these series, is that the CEO tends to hide his identity from his entire business and employees. And I always sit there going like, is that actually possible to do in real life? Like, could a CEO really hide who he was from his employees? And I know if you think about it, there's, the undercover boss, where, like, the series, if you haven't heard the series of Undercover Boss, where a boss gets transformed so no one knows who they are, to work with their everyday employees and see how things are going. And then I think at the end, it's like one of the employees that they're working with has this sob story that they end up helping this employee out by giving them a raise or giving them money or something. I've never actually watched the series, but I think from what I've seen, this has happened. But at the end, the employee still knows what the CEO looks like, or the boss looks like. So my brain really wants to know if this is something that can actually happen in real life. In a story like this, yes, and it makes for great drama, and you always know at the end that the person who's being lied to is going to find out, but not from the CEO himself. It's going to be someone else. The girl's going to be crushed, going to feel betrayed, and it just adds to the drama, is what it does. And that's the whole point of it, is it's for the drama. But it just makes me wonder if this is something that could do. Because in this one, he also pretends to be IT and work in IT, but I don't think he really was down in IT at all or did anything IT related. Because that was also one thing in this, where Chloe ends up getting her laptop smashed with her proposal that she'd been working on, and now she has to do the whole thing over again. And I'm like, oh, he says he's supposed to work in IT, so why doesn't he take the smashed computer and be like, I can recover this, or I can try to recover this, and let me get it back to you. Or why doesn't she ask him? It's like, hey, you work in IT. Is there any way you can recover what's on my laptop? But I guess that would make sense, and it may end up exposing him before he needed to be exposed. Because there are some times like that where I'll watch these series and I was like, well, if they do this, then maybe it would work. And then the next moment I go, wait, no, that would make sense, and that wouldn't be the drama that we need. And in this case, the drama that we need is for her to spend all this time redoing this proposal that was just lost on a computer that was smashed. And I do know that sometimes computers cannot recover all the data if something were to happen to it, so I understand that that is a possibility. I just kind of question why no one mentioned, hey, he works at IT, maybe he could save it, type of deal. Because they kept saying, oh, he's just an IT guy, he's just an IT guy, who never tried to save her computer. And yes, I know he's CEO, not IT guy. But that was just like one moment where I was like, why didn't they say that? But again, it makes more drama if she has to sit there and spend all night recreating it so that way she can win this proposal. And another thing that I keep seeing with these series, which they did in this one, they did it in another one, which had Seth as the star too, is the twist at the end of the girl being part of the billionaire family or the long-lost daughter of this billionaire family and being matched to the CEO, said to be marrying him. You know, that this was an arrangement that happened when they were babies, but because she vanished or she was switched at birth, type of thing, you know, it changed. So I've been kind of like noticing that's been like a twist at the end now, at least for this one versus the one that Seth was in, which I think it was like, it had something to do with homeless and pregnant. I think that's the one. But I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But for this one, they actually kind of like started it earlier on versus that other one, it just kind of came in at the end because she had a birthmark, which when they showed the birthmark in that one, I was like, 100% something's going to be about that. But I thought it was going to be one of those things where he's like, hey, I know you. I recognize that. We met long time ago. I did not expect it to be, hey, you're the long lost daughter of this billionaire woman. I did not see that twist coming. But for this one, she was switched at birth, which made her mother not like her because she wasn't her real daughter. And I got that sense that she was either adopted or not her real daughter. As soon as Mateo asked the question, and I can't remember what the question was, but it was something about how could you do this to your daughter, or how could you treat your daughter like this? something along those lines. And the way the mother responded is like, yeah, she's my daughter. You could tell just from that she wasn't really her daughter. I just assumed it was she kidnapped Chloe, or she adopted Chloe but just never told her. Never assumed that she swapped the babies, because there was no inkling until Mateo started kind of questioning that, because even he saw it, where he was like, there's something not right here. Definitely something not right. So it was kind of nice that they still had it within the series, that it was like a side storyline versus just popping up at the end. But like I said, I have noticed that this is kind of like popping up a bit more. And sometimes it is a fun little twist. Be like, oh, hey, she is the heiress that he is supposed to be marrying, so they can be together, it can be blessed, and they can live happily ever after. But at the same time, I kind of want one where she is just an average person, no royal family, no heiress, no billionaire, long lost billionaire daughter, ends up with the charming CEO billionaire because they love each other. Kind of like that type story. And I know there are some out there. Like I said, I've been noticing a little bit more that they've kind of been doing that with some of the series. I was also pleasantly surprised that the mother and brother didn't come back after getting money from Mateo. So, they had come to Chloe and Mateo's work, trying to act all innocent and victim, and like the victim that Chloe's treating them badly and all this yada yada yada, because that's what they do, and then people believe them because they play the victim so well. And of course, that's where Gina, who is her co-worker, ended up smashing her laptop and ruining it. And then Gina got hers smashed, and she ended up getting fired for that whole debacle. But when it came to the mother and brother, Mateo was like, okay, you'll take the money, give me the deed, leave Chloe alone, and, never come back. And normally, they, in series like these, they take the money, they say, oh yeah, we'll never come back, only to come back, kidnap, or try and extort more money. So I was very shocked, because I was waiting for that, for her and the brother to come back in the series, and they never did. So I was like, I feel like this is one of the first times I've seen this. And it's probably not. But for my memory right now, this is me remembering it like that. And I didn't expect that. It's like, because you always see them come back because they're that money hungry that they want more. Also shocked that they didn't end up working with Jane Ridley, who was the daughter who was actually the mother's daughter. Because Jane and Chloe were the ones who were switched. So it was kind of shocked that they didn't have any interaction either. I figured maybe they would, but they did not. And, Jane over here trying to get Mateo and get her hooks into him, but he's madly in love with Chloe and will not leave her. So it was kind of interesting how they did that. So it went from the mother being the one money hungry and trying to just do anything to get the money, to them leaving, and then Jane coming in and causing the issues to try and break them up so that way she could get Mateo for herself. And of course, using people like Tom and Gina to try and get what she needed, only to have those plans foiled, but putting it all on them instead of her getting in trouble, Which she worked that out perfectly, because she's like, okay, well, I'm going to talk to you, but you're going to be the one who's going to do all this. I'm going to claim that I know nothing about this, and then you're the one who's going to get in trouble, and I'm going to be perfectly fine. Nothing's going to happen to me because I didn't do anything. It was all on you. You were the one who did this all. Which worked out perfectly for her, and usually does. Because it's usually, the main villain gets away scot-free from some of these things until the very end, where everything comes out and, they get sweet justice. Which is what happened here at the gala, is that, she ended up not getting Mateo, realizing she wasn't the daughter, the Ridley daughter she thought she was. Her father, Mr. Ridley, disowning her and cutting her completely off, to her attacking Mateo and then being arrested for it. So it was a lot of sweet justice. And we did get a slap, which we almost, again, another one where we almost did not get a good slap in, but it came near the end. So it was, waited till the very end and we got the slap. And one of the other things that I always look forward to in these series is the baby. So whenever there is a baby in these series, it's always either a rolled up blanket or just a doll. And I understand that's probably because of rules and regulations when it comes to babies. I think there have been a couple where there have been like a baby for a scene. Like I know, I think it's one of the series Nicole's in, where they kind of like show a flashback of how her life has been, and she has the baby on her hip in a scene. I know that one off the top of my head. So I know like every so often they do show a baby, but like in a hospital room when after the baby is born, or like particularly in this one with the wedding at the end where the mom or the grandmother is holding the baby, it tends not to be an actual baby. It tends to be a doll or a rolled up blanket. And I'm sure that has to do with rules and regulations and maybe how production works for these verticals. Because I know for movies and TV shows, when it comes to babies, they can only have babies on set for a certain amount of time. They usually have to have more than one because it's only a limited amount of time that they can have the baby on set, which is why you end up with twins most of the time playing these babies, or, you know, triplets, depending on who gets the role. So I'm sure it has something to do with that, because I know the rules are very strict for TV and movies, and I'm sure they're just as strict for series like these. But it's always fun to see how they create the baby or what they do for the baby. And I think my favorite is always the rolled up blanket, where you don't actually see like a baby, versus where you see the doll, the baby doll. Which, to be fair, there are dolls out there that are very lifelike. And I know, I think some shows actually do use them for like birthing scenes, or they use them if, you know, the baby is premature or they can't actually have a real baby on set. So I always kind of like wonder, could they do something like that, or is that like an expense that can't be used? Because sometimes the dolls that they use are more doll-like. But I do know that there are kind of dolls out there that are very lifelike in a sense. And I think they're also used in like hospital school, not hospital schools, in like nursing schools or like medical schools, kind of to teach people and teach medical professionals. But I don't know about that one. But that was always kind of like one thing that I was very curious whether or not they could use a doll like that for the baby. Because then it would kind of look more realistic. But it is always kind of fun to see, okay, what are they doing for the baby this time? Is that a baby? Will it look like a baby? Or is it just a rolled up blanket? Which I think for this one, it might have been just a rolled up blanket. Because we never actually saw the baby. We just saw the grandmother holding the baby and talking to the baby. So you saw the baby all wrapped up in the blanket and not the actual baby. So they could get away with not having anything, or maybe just having a doll. I also kind of feel like I've gone on like some little tangents about different series versus actually talking about this one as a whole, which is not what I meant to do, but I just kind of was like, okay, well, we did this. This is what's normally done, but it wasn't done in this. And And I try to stay on topic. I do. But as you can see, I start talking about something and it just keeps going. But this one was fun. I did enjoy it. I thought it was really cute. I loved it. The actors who played Chloe and Mateo, you could really feel their chemistry with each other. And I loved how she slowly to kind of realize, it's like, oh, I actually do have feelings for Mateo. And I do want to be with him, but can I let myself do that? Type of thing. So you could see that she was slowly starting to fall for him, even though he's been in love with her for years. And you just kind of really saw how she was opening her eyes to realize that he could be the person I could spend the rest of my life with. And I do really want to be with him, and that I do love him. And I love when we get to see that, because a lot of the times you sometimes don't get to see that. Get to see, it's like, oh, well, he loves me, but he's in love with her, and I'm never going to be with her. I mean, he's never going to leave her and be with me type scenarios. So I love that this wasn't that. It was he wants to be with me, even though she's trying to say, oh, hey, I'm supposed to be with him. I'm not buying that. But yeah, so this has been me ranting, hopefully talking about a flash married, my best friend. I know I didn't always kind of talk about that, but it was definitely this little cute little love story, and I love how it stuck to, you know, the normal series, short drama tropes and actions, but also kind of was its own series as well. So it's kind of like it was a combination of both, in a sense, that it was like this little romantic comedy, but also your typical vertical short type series. It had all the different little things, but also was still very much this cute little love story where you got the happy ending and they were able to renew their vows and have this nice wedding. And it was just wholesome, fun, enjoyed every minute of it. It's definitely, say, about a 9 out of 10 on a rating scale for me. And I think mostly because it had Luke Charles Stafford in it, who I adore. He's another one that I adore. I also confuse him from time to time with Chris Brochu, who was on the Vampire Diaries. For some reason, my brain thinks that they look alike, even though I don't actually think they do. So definitely have to like put them side by side and see. But for some odd reason, my brain sees him and goes, you know what? He looks so much like Chris Brochu. And that's just one of the things that my brain likes to confuse him for. But he is another one that I do enjoy his series. And I've seen a couple different ones of his. I know he just had another one come out on ReelShort. Again, terrible with names. But I do know it was about his wedding. His sister was in town. They're all wolves. And his fiance thought that his sister was actually his mistress, so they attack her, not realizing that it was actually his sister. And I keep seeing those ads and those clips on TikTok, on Instagram, sometimes on Facebook too. And I have to watch that one. So that's another one that I will definitely watch, because I need to see how that ends. I want to know how it ends with the fiance, whether or not she gets kicked to the curb or put in jail or, banished from the pack. Because he's not marrying her. That's not happening. But that's another one that I have to watch. And I look forward to watching it. I have a long list of ones that I gotta watch, which I will definitely be doing this weekend, kind of going through and watching some of them. But this was one of the ones that I wanted to watch first, because I really wanted to see it, because I, again, thought it was like this little cute romantic comedy, which it definitely was. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would totally recommend it to others. But yeah, so this has been my vertical obsession, and until next time.